James R. Dutton. We have the room, I believe, for another 30 minutes, and then we're out. Mr. Dutton, I almost know your testimony. I've been watching you nod and shake your head the entire time.
I get very passionate about this.
I would agree with you on that.
Thank you, sir.
And would you tell us who you are and who you're with?
Sure. My name is James R. Dutton. I'm the vice chair of the Spalding County Commission, but I'm also leading the way from the members of the defense bar in Georgia. I'm taking my case that I could have signed an affidavit that it wasn't me. I could have challenged it in many different ways, all the way to the state Supreme Court now for the second time. We've been bounced back and forth. The filing fee there, by the way, is $300. So I paid a $300 filing fee instead of a $100 ticket. Why? Because the first thing I learned, one block north of here, at Georgia State Law School on my very first day, is that the only rights that we have are the rights that we assert. And the moment you stop asserting them, you lose them, and you do not get them back. That doesn't just go for me individually, that goes for us as a society. So I'm not here to talk about fixing a bill or which one you guys, that's going to be up to you. I'm here to talk about the rights of Georgians under the Constitution that we all as elected officials swore an oath to uphold and protect. So let's talk about that. In Spalding County, I've written some notes. I didn't have a prepared statement, but I wanted to talk about some of the points that have been raised, so if you'll indulge me, this might be a little bit more disjointed than otherwise. The cost in Spalding County to go from one state court judge, now we're only 70,000 people, to go from one state court judge that normally does 8,000, 9,000 total cases in a year to the 4 state court judges that we will need to be able to prosecute these cases and give everyone their due process rights is $1.9 million per additional judge. Okay, so that's almost $6 million in cost for judges, cost for prosecutors, cost for bailiffs, et cetera, et cetera. We have raised less than that in the 2 years that this program has been active in Spalding County. Now, how many tickets has Spalding County written? Again, there's right at 70,000 people in Spalding County. Take a guess. Take a crazy guess. Over 90,000 of these tickets have been written just in Spalding County. That's almost 2.5 tickets per driver in our county. So to say that these have been effective in slowing people down is ludicrous. That's simply not the case. If you look, just as Sheriff Long, and I really appreciate him, and I'm glad that Spalding County is situated right next to Butts County. We have such wonderful officials there. If you look at what the intent behind these corporations is, they're for-profits. If you look at the intent behind what the original legislation was, well, how do we get more money? How do we fund this? How do we fund this? The legislative intent is clearly money. It's clearly policing for profit, except it's not the police doing it. In Spalding County, the idea, again, that Sheriff Long brought up, that this is something to protect children. In Spalding County's entire history, not once is there any recorded instance of a child being hurt or killed in a school zone. Not once, ever. And yet we've written 90,000 of these tickets in 2 years. But I'll tell you what has happened. Not every school even has sidewalks to it in Spalding County. We're a relatively rural county. But those that are in town, those that the district, in fact, that I live in Spalding County, do have sidewalks, do have crosswalks, and had crossing guards that were there in the morning and in the afternoon. But now, since this program, they're no longer needed. So we don't have crossing guards anymore. So we know that no one's slowing down, and yet now we don't have crossing guards. This school zone safety program has demonstratively made our children less safe. If the intent was to make it more safe, you've done the opposite. Now, let's talk about privacy. These cameras write tickets, and there have been several instances where it's come and gone when they've been outside of the time or on Saturdays. You know, there's anecdotal evidence of that. That happened a lot when this first started in Spalding County as well. However, they've really honed it in to that time, which is great. However, the cameras are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, ours are operated by radar. All the camera systems that I've spoken with, this is the first I've heard today that some are actually laser. All those cameras take a picture of every car that passes, not just the speeders, every single one. That data goes to the for-profit corporation in Seattle. That corporation, for some strange reason, has been given unfettered access to the registration office. And so they get your address, they get your name, they get your tax history, they get all of that information that is available exclusively right now to government officials and law enforcement. If I get sideswiped on my way to Henry County, where I'm due in Henry County Superior Court at 9 a.m., so I hope they'll indulge me.
Don't speed.
Right. If I get sideswiped and I get a picture of the tag, but the guy drives away, and I call one of my friends, like Sheriff Long, and say, hey, can you run this? I want to sue this guy. He hit my car. He owes me money. It's illegal for him to do that. And yet, for some reason, we have given a for-profit corporation carte blanche to run every single person every single time they pass any of these any of these cameras. That's all. Every time I pass them, that's every time my wife passes them, that's every time you pass them, that's every time your wife passes them. What can they do with that data? Anything they want.
Do the cameras you go by in Spalding County, they have flock attached to them?
They're not attached. That is a separate system. The flock system has its own issues. However, this is a totally different idea.
What is the corporation based in Seattle?
This is the Vera Mobility. It's very hard to actually get information on.
Yeah, they're not here
camera
today. So yeah,
I don't believe that they're here today. Yeah. That said, they weren't at or no representatives of there were there at the trial court hearing when we had our hearing, even though they were subpoenaed to be. And even though the person that had done their certifications, even though the person that had done their installations, even the person that signs the piece of paper that says these cameras are up to date and they're calibrated correctly, were all subpoenaed to be there, none of them were there.
Okay. Chairman Albers.
First and foremost, thank you so much for coming down here and fighting the good fight. You brought up a very interesting point, because I actually have the data privacy legislation for the state of Georgia that's hopefully going to move out of the House committee today and get passed upon. But today, you were right. Anybody who's capturing that information of anybody going through, whether they're speeding or not, is literally capturing that person's license plate.
That's right.
Now, they can at that point either delete that information if they're not speeding, based on their own protocols, and I'm sure the fine folks here can tell us what their internal processes are. But there's actually nothing illegal for them to hold on to that information. There's nothing that prevents them from doing that.
Or sell it.
Correct. Well, that's the whole thing, right? So data is modern day oil and gold. It's
That's
more,
right.
it's more valuable. So today, if I know that these cars, based on their licensing, their demographics, their taxes, their everything is going this way all the time, I've taken a marketing asset that would be worth 1/10 of 1 penny and made it 100 times greater to target market.
That's right.
That's something we have not talked about, and we should be talking about, folks.
Well,
It's an
and
incredible overreach.
even to the flock thing, private citizens can purchase flock cameras.
And once they do, they get access to that full
No,
information.
that's what I'm saying. Private citizens, neighborhood watch groups, and others can purchase flock cameras and install them into their
That's correct.
communities as neighborhood watch, if you
That's
will.
right.
Yeah.
And right now, the flock cameras in general are
And I don't
being
wanna-
used
I
for
don't-
good.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is a separate issue. However, they do have the potentiality, if someone wanted to use them for bad, to be used for bad. Right now in Canada, they're using their equivalent of the flock cameras to lock down people's bank accounts who are traveling to protest against the government.
Yeah.
I mean, that's happening in Canada.
Yeah.
Not Venezuela.
Yeah.
Not
Well-
China.
Well, and Canada doesn't have a constitution.
Right.
But also, back to your point, as an attorney, and you have these cases going through, have you looked at the contract signed by this individual and is it a county or municipal?
No, this is specifically our sheriff unilaterally signed this contract.
Okay,
it
so
never
this is-
came before the county
Okay,
commission.
have you seen the contract that the sheriff signed?
I have seen the contract. I've seen some of the permits for some of the cameras. He can't provide all the
Is there
permits for all
anything in the
cameras.
contract that describes what has to be done with the data? Because we've done other things to where the data has to be dumped, even in law enforcement, where the data has to be dumped within 60 days.
I don't believe there's
Where-
any such
Where
requirement.
Sheriff Long was talking earlier about how if there's they're looking for a particular vehicle and all this, they can activate the flock, gather the information, but anybody that is not related to the information they're looking for, that data is disposed of within a certain time frame, so that law enforcement doesn't create a database of individuals who have violated no law or violated any ordinance.
I don't believe that's a requirement. However, we did hear from one of the companies today that they were able to look up who they considered to Senator Albert's point, that the person they considered to be lying to Senator Albers, that they had looked up and seen their
Multiple
entire history.
citations.
Hey, look at
Yeah.
all, so they had that citation history. The corporation did, not law enforcement. The corporation did. So
Right.
to say that they're dumping it and getting rid of it is
No, I'm saying if
not
it's,
true.
if it's.
I
no,
don't
no,
believe it's
I'm
required.
saying if it's in the contract that they have to
I
dispose
suppose
of
it, I suppose it could be. I don't believe it
Yeah.
is in this contract.
Okay.
However, what is in that contract is the right for that for-profit corporation to, along with its letter of marque and reprisal, to put the symbol of the Spalding County Sheriff's Department on their mailers. So you guys were talking about maybe that would make it more obvious. Well, that's already happening in Spalding County. They get what looks like a letter from the Sheriff's Department. It's not a letter from the Sheriff's Department. It's a for-profit corporation that's trying to get money out of you. Immediately when you put in, I would like a hearing, automatically what gets sent back. Now, I've represented over 40 defendants in these cases, including myself. When you put in for a hearing, every single time, they send you back an official-looking document with the sheriff's seal on it that says, you're out of time, you can't, you just have to pay it. You don't get a hearing. You have to force and fight, and they send you final notices with the sheriff's seal on it. No, if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to register your car. What looks like force of law. Now, again, if I sued that driver that sideswipes me, and he says, I don't think I sideswiped you. I think you got the wrong guy. I think we need to have a hearing. And I sent him something from the court that said, no, you don't get a hearing. You just have to pay me. I'd be found in contempt. That's illegal. I can't do that. And yet this corporation does it for every single citation. Over 90,000.
Real quick, Representative Washburn, what company has the contract there in Bibb County?
Altumint, Altumint is on the name of the invoice that I have.
Altumint, and then this company is
So this is Vera Mobility,
Vera
but
Mobility.
Vera Mobility only does a portion of it. When I subpoenaed for my hearing the calibration data. It's the computer itself saying, no, I'm calibrated correctly. And every hour it goes, no, I'm calibrated correctly. No, I'm calibrated correctly. No human actually does that. When I finally forced and pushed through to get any information, I don't know if you guys are aware of the rules of evidence, but an out-of-court statement asserted for the truth is called hearsay. That's the definition. If somebody is out of court asserting a statement that somebody else told them, that's hearsay within hearsay. Well, this is 4 deep hearsay. They've subcontracted to a subcontractor who subcontracted it to a sub. We're 4 deep in hearsay, and yet the court had to let it in, or all of these cases would be thrown out. This is one of the parts of my appeal to the state, however.
In your first case went how far?
Well, the first case went to the state Supreme Court, but that was on a motion.
Okay.
And so they said, well, since no one's actually been harmed yet, even though 90,000 people have paid these tickets just in Spalding County, they said, no, since in this case he hasn't actually paid the ticket, we have to do it on the full hearing. That said, the amount that we're now going back and forth. I believe that we're now back in the appeals court from the Supreme Court. I think they might be waiting on y'all to pass 225 and hoping that they don't have to make a decision. And I would be totally fine with that. Again, it's amazing what you can do for law and justice and for the rights of and protecting the rights of people when you don't care who gets credit for it. So I don't want my name on it. I just want it to go away.
I appreciate you. I want to keep moving. Any questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Dutton. I hope you make it to court on time today.
Thank y'all for
I don't
letting me
want you to
come.
be held in contempt.
Thank y'all for letting me come this morning.
Yeah.